On today's show, SGA is now the MVP favorite after an MVP performance against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll talk about that game and all the others on the last games of 2024 on Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
And welcome. You're Locked On NBA Game Night. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being it every day or making Locked On NBA your first listen today. Joining me, as always, just kidding, from Locked On Bulls. He used to record with the other Locked On Bulls hosts all the time, and now...
What are we doing? This is starting to show off.
I'm here with I just miss Pat. That's all. Just miss Pat. What you got for me, Haize?
Hey man, it was a fun day of basketball tonight. I'm excited to talk about these games, and I'm excited for this first topic to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, somebody who's turning into one of my favorite players in the NBA.
There were some games that were good, and some teams just really wanted to start New Year's off early. So we'll get to some of those. Every game in the association tonight. We'll talk about Memphis and Phoenix. Should Phoenix blow it up? Because that was a bad loss for that team, getting Devin Booker back and not looking really great at all. So we'll talk about all that. Let's start here where Haize mentioned the Oklahoma City Thunder get a win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and this team is they're just so good. There's a team inside there that can just kind of turn it on whenever they need to. They win 113 to 105. In this game, you had Minnesota went on a little bit of a run in the third quarter. They were up by 3, and then all of a sudden they were up by 12. Mike Conley had a 9-0 personal run where he hit 3 threes in a row, and all of a sudden Minnesota was getting some energy, and the Thunder were like, hey, guess what? We're going to take that and go on a run ourselves. 27-5 run at the end of the third quarter to get a 10-point lead there, and in the fourth quarter, they just hold on to a 10-point lead with 5 minutes left. SGA, the big story in this one, 40 points for him, getting it all done, a couple of threes, but mostly these like short mid-range shots where he can just drive, stop, pop, pull up, and get it going. SGA, the MVP favorite according to FanDuel, plus 110, Jokic is plus 115, Giannis plus 750, and then way behind, Tatum plus 2,200, Wemby plus 7,500. Should SGA be the MVP favorite, Haize?
Yes. I was pushing this narrative last year. I think he was having an MVP caliber season. The way that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has played over the last few years, it warrants him being in the MVP conversation. But then when you pair into that, just how good this Thunder team is, and it's led by him, and the different roles that he's had to play. Whatever they've needed, he stepped up and done. When they've lost players, anything, when they had no centers there for a second, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best, most well-rounded players in the NBA, and I'm glad that he's starting to get the recognition that I feel like he's deserved for the last few years.
40 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds. He's not really doing anything else, but the man can get buckets. Yeah, that is for sure. He can get buckets. I guess he's the MVP. He's the okay. He's the MVP. He should be the MVP favorite right now as the season has gone on. You can convince me that Giannis should. Jokic, I don't know that team is good enough for him to get there, but his numbers are insane. I mean, he's putting up wild stuff. What he did yesterday that we talked about on Game Night was absolutely insane. The Thunder get a win. Let's hear from Rylan Stiles from Locked On Thunder about how the Thunder got this win.
Thunder get their 12th win in a row, matching a franchise record over the Minnesota Timberwolves on their annual New Year's Eve game. SGA was simply the MVP. That third quarter takeover helped propel the Thunder not only back in this game, but a pretty impressive win down the stretch. He had another 40-point game, third in the last week from the MVP of this league. Jalen Williams had a ferocious night defensively, but offensively, the Thunder did just enough to get a win. It was their defense that led them to a big win.
Rylan calling it early, already saying the MVP of this league. I guess you respect it. What did you see from the Thunder in this one?
I mean, just the balance that they keep having. Like, the Thunder are just a team that attacks, and they can do it in so many different ways. And when Isaiah Hartenstein's playing the way that he has been playing since he came back, like getting double-doubles easily, like, I can't wait to see what this team looks like with Chet. We still have not gotten to see in the regular season Chet and Steen out there together, and that's what's so scary about this Thunder team, because, like, they could have a whole nother gear that we just have not seen yet. Now, that's up to Chet getting up to speed and as he comes back later on in the season and things like that. But the way that they're able to play defense out on the perimeter, able to throw Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins at you, Lou Dort at you, and then with having Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein out there together in the front court, this team is dangerous.
Yeah, I am really fascinated to see that Chet Holmgren, Hartenstein, if they put them together and play those two guys, because they have not had a lineup where they have more than one guy over 6'6", like this whole run, basically. They just got Jalen Williams, the bigger Jalen Williams, back, so they played him a little bit in this one. What I saw from the Thunder is in that run, in the third quarter, the 27-5 run that took a 12-point deficit to a 10-point lead for the Thunder, I saw their defense just clamp down on the Timberwolves. And this Timberwolves team has some issues scoring. They don't have a lot of shot creators, and the ones that they do, like Julius Randle, are not playing really well this season. But in that run, it's about a 5-minute stretch, and I counted. I think Minnesota got off like 3 solid shots. Not like good looks, but just like they got off 3 shots. Gobert missed a dunk. Randle tried to isolate on Jalen Williams, the wing J-Dub, and Jalen Williams just stole his cookies, like right out from under him. He just had no shot there. The shot clock violation for the Timberwolves in there too. I mean, the Timberwolves, or the Thunder defense just clamps down. They got 3 shots in 5 minutes, and it's just dangerous to look at the team. They're the best defense in the NBA, and you can see why.
Yeah, and I think the thing with the Thunder too is that like their one Achilles heel is when their 3-ball is not falling, right? And that's the thing that you worry about them with the playoffs. But their defense is so good. They're so active at what they do that you trust that they're going to be able to overcome it. But there is still a concern here over that 3-point shooting, especially if they face off against another team that's good defensively. Are they going to be able to shoot well enough in a series if it gets close? And other than that, though, I really don't have many questions about this Thunder team.
They still didn't answer the question that they struggled with against the Mavericks last year in the playoffs, which was, do you have one other guy that can create a shot or create a shot for somebody else? And you kind of saw that in this fourth quarter where the Thunder were up by 10 with like 5:30 left. And then by 3:14, it was down to a 3-point lead because OKC couldn't get any more buckets. Like SGA just missed a couple of shots and no one else could create offense in there. And so I'm waiting to see that Chet Hartenstein lineup, because maybe they start to become all of a sudden a really good offensive rebounding team, and then you go, oh man, now they rebound really well. Like what else are you gonna, like, you can't take anything else away from this team now. And Hartenstein's screens have been really good for this team. Chet obviously can do a bunch of different things on offense, so maybe that opens up a little bit more for them offensive wise. But them not being able to create offense, I think is their one weakness that a team can really exploit. If you get them to just, all right, we'll just play isolation ball with us, go ahead. Have SGA get his 40, and that's fine, or get his 30, because he usually just gets 30 every game, and that's it. And get his 30, and then who else is gonna come out and score on us? That's the thing that I think this team will struggle with when push comes to shove.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing when you look at like them and the other team that I'm looking at the West, actually your team, a fully healthy Dallas Mavericks team, you don't worry about who's going to create shots. They have people who can create shots. So that's the one thing I'm looking at with that. I hope we see that matchup in the Western Conference Finals this year. But other than that, I'm excited to see how far this Thunder team can go.
Yeah, Jalen Williams, 14 points on 6 of 12 shooting. It's just like he's got to take that next leap as a shot creator. We just really haven't seen it. So I don't know if you can find a weakness in a 27-5 team that we just mentioned like 5 minutes ago that has another gear that they can hit at some point. But if it is, it's that. Coming up, let's talk about the Grizzlies and the Suns. Do the Suns have another gear? I think they wish that they would have gone into it in this one. We'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Rocket RX. Are you ready to enter 2025 feeling more confident, boosting your confidence, and taking control in the bedroom? Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free to do that. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at lower costs than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor's visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. You don't have anybody, no porch pirates are going to come and be like, hey, I'm going to take this. Rocket RX, you get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team, complete with a quick 100% online consultation. You can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It takes only 2 minutes, and our listeners can get 40% off your first order with the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, and the code is LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms apply. Check Rocket RX. Better sex made simple. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Locked On NBA Game Night. We have a daily show that covers every single team. Haize on the Bulls, covering the Bulls all the time. Good win the other night for the Bulls.
Is it though? Is it a good win considering where this team is? Is it, Nick? Like I always love my team winning. Make no mistake about it. But question. It's just like every win is just us staying in the middle. It is what it is, man.
A team not staying in the middle and getting a good win in my book is the Memphis Grizzlies. They're missing a ton of guys. Ja Morant, they're just their best player missing in this one. Marcus Smart, Zach Edey, Brandon Clark, Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams, Santi Aldama, Jake LaRavia missing like half their rotation in this one. They get a win against the Phoenix Suns. Let's hear from our guy Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies.
No Ja Morant, no problem. The Memphis Grizzlies found a way to pick up a very unlikely victory in Phoenix against the Suns on New Year's Eve. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and it wasn't just Ja that was out. It was Santi Aldama. It was Brandon Clark. It was literally half the roster, not just the rotation that Memphis thought that they would have going into the season, but the roster itself. All they needed on this night was Jaren Jackson Jr. and Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane. If you're an everydayer of Locked On Grizzlies, you know that DeMichael Cole and myself talked about how no one was going to be able to defend Jaren Jackson Jr. That rang true. But the continued resurgence of Desmond Bane was huge. Devin Booker coming back and not looking himself certainly helped. But Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. led the way, a big win, an unexpected victory to close out 2024.
When Joe sent me that video, he said, "Apologies, I started my New Year's party early." And I was like, "You're the most coherent guy that had been drinking that I've ever heard." It was fine. He flew through that. It was great. Good job. Yeah. The Grizzlies getting a win in this one. It came down to the end, but Jaren Jackson Jr. was just too much. No Nurkic in this one for the Suns because of the suspension still. 38 points, 10 boards for Jaren Jackson Jr. in this one. Are we thinking all-star for this guy?
Yeah. Oh, I think for sure he has to be, right? Yeah, Jaren Jackson Jr. is a monster.
He was great. Desmond Bane, the same, 31 points for him. And Memphis basically never trailed in this game. And it came down to the last couple of plays. And one of the things that I think one of the reasons why Memphis won this game was you get to the last couple of minutes and Phoenix is putting on a little bit of a run. And Memphis gets multiple offensive rebounds. 2:10 left, offensive rebound. They get a 3 off of that. 127, Memphis gets an offensive rebound, and Bane gets a layup. That was an insane shot right there. And then another and one off a Conchar hit, and then an offensive rebound and a couple of free throws off of Jaren Jackson Jr. Insane chuck from the corner. He got stuck in the corner, tried to throw up a 3. KD blocks it. And Jaren Jackson Jr. grabs the ball and is falling out of bounds in the corner. Just throws up a wild, it looked like Dwayne Wade when he threw the ball up at the end when the Heat won that title.
Oh, yeah.
he threw it up like that, grazes the rim, and Memphis gets a rebound, then gets fouled and makes it an 8-point game at that point, and that was basically the game. But the offensive rebounds for the Grizzlies were massive, 16 for them. They just looked bigger. They looked better than the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns had Devin Booker back with Kevin Durant, who had 29, and Bradley Beal, who played in this one but went out with a hip contusion early in this game. The Suns, what's the worry meter for the Suns right now?
I mean, what a 15 out of 10? The Suns should be very, very worried. Mainly because you mentioned earlier when you segued, like a team that needs some help. Like Bradley Beal is supposed to be that help. That's supposed to be the reinforcement, and unfortunately, you can't bet on him. Devin Booker doesn't look like Devin Booker right now. It's Kevin Durant, and I think that the game when they played against you guys the other day, like when the Mavericks won through depth and the Suns were trying to win just off the nature of Kevin Durant, there's no help there. Like Tyus Jones is having a really good season for who he is, but like if Bradley Beal is going to not be healthy and not give them much, and unfortunately the Suns are a team that are so far above the second tax apron, they don't have the ability to really make a real move to improve this team. I think that the panic meter for the Suns team needs to be the highest level of panic, because they can't improve and they just don't look good at all.
Locked On Suns host Ben Garcia is also worried about this. Let's hear from him after this game.
Suns fans, I'm starting to be at a loss for words with this team. The Phoenix Suns lose to a Ja Morant-less Memphis Grizzlies team, 117-104. 112, a game in which right away the Memphis Grizzlies got off to a hot start, starting this game 11-2, and that was really the theme of this game. It just felt like the Memphis Grizzlies wanted it more. It felt like the Suns thought without Ja Morant they would be able to just pulverize this team, but that was never the case. The Phoenix Suns, although he has his deficiencies, looked like they missed their guy, Yusuf Nurkic, tonight, who is still suspended, as we saw Jaren Jackson Jr. run roughshod all over this team tonight, and clearly showing that they continue to have a front court deficiency. Devin Booker comes back. Bradley Beal gets hurt with a hip contusion is what they're calling it. No idea when he could be back, but at this point, the Phoenix Suns lose once more, lack energy, and we're all questioning what's next.
What is next for the Phoenix Suns, Haize?
More losing. I mean, since their 7-game winning streak at the beginning of the season, like they've gone on several long losing streaks, and they win 2 games, they lose 3, win 2 games, lose 3. A lot of losings in their future.
That's the thing. They at the beginning of the season, they're winning with Kevin Durant, and then Kevin Durant goes out and they lose a bunch of games, and I go, okay, Kevin Durant is just the key for them. Then Kevin Durant comes back, and now they're not winning games. You mentioned Devin Booker hasn't been himself. He only has 16, and this one is 4 of 20 shooting in this game. And it's his first game back. He missed 5 games. But this is a stat that I just found interesting because I thought, man, I've seen a bunch of games where Devin Booker doesn't have 20 points. This season so far, 27 games played. He's had 8 games under 20 points scoring. Last season, in 68 games, he only had 11. He only had 11 games under 20 points. The season before that, he played 53 games. He only had 12 games scoring under 20 points. This year, he's already had 8 in just 27 games. He's not scoring the same way. That Devin Booker has not come to this season. Thinking about all the SGA talk today, and then also thinking about Devin Booker, made me think that at one point they were like on the same level. And now there's just no world where you would consider that.
No, you'd be crazy to.
It's wild. The fall off needs to be studied.
You know what? Devin Booker's having the season that people thought Zach LaVine was going to have.
Who would you rather have right now?
Right now, Zach LaVine.
Wow. That's the Bulls bias right there.
No, I mean, when you look at Zach, like Zach is playing a complementary role to players that aren't nearly on the level of a Kevin Durant. And I think Zach is out to prove that he can fit in. He's also welcoming, taking on the best perimeter defensive assignment on some nights and doing a pretty good job. Zach LaVine's on pace, I think, to have his first plus defensive season in like the last 6 years. Right now, this season, I take Zach LaVine over Devin Booker.
Coming in, he spends like a couple of months with Matt Moore, and this guy's coming in with hot takes on Locked On NBA. Yeah, Suns a tough one for them. The Milwaukee Bucks get a win against the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers were up by 19 points at one point in the third quarter with 6:57 left in the third quarter. It was 83-64, and with a minute 31 left in the third quarter, Indiana was only up by 3. It was a 22-6 run for the Milwaukee Bucks. What happened to the Indiana Pacers? Let's hear from our guy Tony East.
Here in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, host of Locked On Pacers, to tell you about, oh man, the Pacers blowing a 19-point second half lead. They were up 83-64 with 18 minutes and 42 seconds to go in this game. Ben Mathurin just hit 2 threes. Bucks took a timeout. It felt over, and then it didn't very quickly. Bucks surged back. We're only down single digits by the end of that quarter. They were much better in the fourth quarter. 2 stories of this game, defense, and specifically zone defense for the Bucks. Pacers had few answers for a zone. Bucks sat in it more than most teams do against the Pacers, and it worked. Pacers couldn't get in the middle of it. They couldn't make the threes to punish it. And Giannis, 26 second-half points for the recovering from illness Giannis. He was getting to the foul line. He was making tough mid-range shots. He was obviously getting to the rim, as he does in the Bucks. Spirited game, 56-29 over the final 18 minutes and 42 seconds of this game. Pacers needed more from their point guards. Unfortunately, they fall back to 16 and 18, and we'll have much more on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
Before the 19-point lead, Damian Lillard had 0 points. He was 0 of 9 for the field. The Bucks were shooting 4 of 21 from 3. And then after the 19-point lead, Giannis had 19 points, and they shot, and the Bucks hit a bunch of threes after that. And it was just basically the tale of two sections where Indiana went up, and then the Bucks just responded in a really big way.
And that's what the Bucks have done. Like the Bucks offense, when it's rocking and rolling, it can get them back in games. So I have some questions about their defense, especially as you head towards the playoffs. We still got a lot of time to kind of figure out those answers there. The Pacers, though, like The Pacers are such an up and down team because they still won 6 out of their last 10 games, which is really good. They're playing much better here over the last month than how the season has started off for them. But it still kind of feels like the Pacers are still on pace to have a disappointing season per kind of how they played last season. And that's something that's going to be interesting to watch. But the Bucks, love to see the Bucks kind of climbing their way back up and fixing a lot of what they had going on wrong with them in the beginning of the season.
Well, you want to talk about a disappointing guard. Tyrese Halliburton, 12 points in this one, just 3 of 13. He did have 7 assists and 7 rebounds, and I also thought he played some good defense. He had some really good moments where he had some defensive plays down the stretch, but yeah, it just hasn't been good enough for them to take the big leap that we thought. I thought that they would be a team that just plays such a high octane level of offense that teams couldn't keep up with them. That turned out to be the Cavs this year, who we'll talk about in a little bit here. But yeah, the Bucks get a win here. Giannis, big game for him. 30 points, 12 boards, 5 assists. And he had one of the funnier plays that I've seen. Last 5 minutes of the game, there's like a minute left. Giannis, after a challenge that Lillard got right. Lillard, got fouled, but then Lillard had a foul, but then they reversed it to an offensive foul, and Lillard was right on the challenge there. Comes back, Giannis drives, lefty, fadeaway jumper, and then he's like, versus Siakam, and he's going back on the other end of the floor, and Giannis is like hyping himself up. He's so happy that he made a jump shot and made like a fadeaway jumper, and then Milwaukee was up 7 at that point, 50 seconds left, and that was the end of that one. So a good win for the Bucks in that one. Coming up, a win for the Cavs. The Cavs are the blank best team in the NBA. We're going to answer that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Rocket Money. I've been using Rocket Money. I used it when I was at a point in my life where I just didn't know what I was doing with my finances. They were going all over the place, and I didn't have any organization. I didn't know how to just like start organizing things and putting different amounts of money in different boxes and things like that. Rocket Money helped me with that. It's a personal finance app that helps lower your bills and also helps you monitor your spending, see where you're spending what. I knew that I was spending a lot on too many different things, but I didn't know how many different subscriptions I had, how many different bills I had that were too high. They helped me. They lowered one of my bills as well, which is helpful, and they can save members $740 a year when using all the premium features that they offer. Check out Rocket Money. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Big chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
It's Counted Up, where we count the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. Pat loved the Zion Williamson and porn stars drop. He would drop.
That's exactly what it made me think when I heard that clip. Was like, Pat. I talk to Pat almost every day, and he probably finds a way to bring that up probably 3 times a week. It
was the funniest drop, and I had to put it in the Counted Up intro. Cavs get a win against the Lakers, and it just felt like they were toying with the Lakers a lot of times in this game. They would go out to a big lead. They had a 15-point lead in the first quarter, then the Lakers came back, and the Lakers ended up taking a lead in the second quarter. Then they had a 12-point lead in the third quarter, and then the Lakers went on a 10-0 run, and then they came back. And then they built up to a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter with a 17-2 run. The story in this one to me was the three-point shooting. Cleveland went 18 of 46, the Lakers 9 of 35. You're not going to win a lot of games when you get outscored by 27 on the three-point line.
Yeah, I mean that's difficult for any team to overcome, no matter how good you are, not good you are. Like, and that's where the NBA is going. You're able to create that 3-point discrepancy. I mean, that gets you most of the way there, right there.
JJ Redick had a great quote about the Cavs afterwards. He said, "You have to play close to perfect basketball if you expect to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers," which made me think the Cleveland Cavaliers are the blank best team in the NBA. Give me a number, Haize.
Right now, I would have to say they're the second best team in the NBA. I still got the OKC Thunder over the Cavs, second best team in the NBA.
I struggle with a question like this because I'm always still looking at the playoffs. In a playoff series, I don't think they're the second best team. But in the regular season right now, on any given night, I think they are the second best team. I think the Thunder are still better than them. The Cavs offense is just insane, though. I'm curious to see the Cavs play the Thunder and see what happens there between an offense this good and a defense this good. But in the playoffs, I'm just still waiting because we haven't seen this team play really well in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, and that's always the question during the regular season is like teams do this in the regular season, and then the playoffs can be a much different story. And I hope that they're fully healthy because I don't want any questions going into it. Like they're a team that does it, and I love the way the balance that they have between their main four players. Yeah. And we still have not had to see like Donovan Mitchell go off a lot this season. That's when you talk about another gears teams can go to. That's another one that they can go to. So the Cavs are definitely going to be a dangerous team. They're definitely going to be a fun watch in the playoffs. But I have some questions, and it's mainly, like you said, it's just because they haven't really done it yet.
Donovan Mitchell is like 26th in the NBA in scoring. He's averaging 23.7 points a game. He's not doing Donovan Mitchell, at least things like to the level that he has in the past as far as individual scoring. I'm going to say something that sounds disrespectful, but I don't mean it to be. They're the 60-win Hawks team from a couple years ago, the Al Horford team. Remember that team that had 4 All-Stars with Kyle Korver and Paul Millsap? It feels like they're that team, and I'm just waiting to see how that works because in the playoffs, you have to have the one guy step up, and that Hawks team didn't really and got beat by LeBron. This Cavs team does have Donovan Mitchell, who we've seen step up big in the playoffs, and so that's the one that I'm watching.
Yeah, and I think too, like while Donovan Mitchell is the guy that I would expect to do that, let's not overlook like this team has had times of empowering Darius Garland and kind of giving him the opportunity to step into that, and he has shown a little bit of ability to do that as well. Now, of course, not as consistent as Donovan Mitchell has done it over his career. So when you go into the playoffs, having either one of those guys having that ability, that could be the X factor for them in the playoffs.
Solid win for the Cavs. Let's hear from Danny Cunningham of Locked On Cavs about the win.
Cleveland Cavaliers end 2024 the way we all expected them to, with another victory as they beat the Los Angeles Lakers 122-110 on New Year's Eve. Jarrett Allen was the best player in this game. Yeah, LeBron played, Anthony Davis, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Austin Reeves played well, but Jarrett Allen was better than all of them. He had 27 points, 14 rebounds in the win for the Cavs. He was a big difference both in the second quarter and in the fourth quarter, closing this game out. Cavs now move to 3-0 on this West Coast road trip. They are 29-4 on the season. They'll close out the West Coast trip Friday in Dallas against a Mavericks team that won't have Luka Doncic. This Cavs team is a true NBA championship contender. They look like it every single night. If you don't believe yet, it might be time to start.
Danny definitely believes in that. And I would think that Danny thinks that they are a top 1 team in the NBA, the way he was talking just that. A team that could also say that they're a top 1 team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics, they've won a title, and they won a game tonight by 54 points, the biggest margin of victory in the NBA this season against the Toronto Raptors. I texted Sean Woodley, our Locked On Raptors host, and I just said, bro, 54. And he said, LMAO, man, I don't get paid enough to watch this team. Let's hear from John Krellis after the Celtics win.
That's more like it. 125-71, an easy win for the Celtics, who played much better defense, obviously, in this one. The Raptors helped by missing a lot of shots, but the Celtics were much more active in this game. They were much more engaged. Bodies moved, hands moved. It was much more of a Celtics defensive performance. And then Drew Holiday came back. Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, the guard play is where things really stood out. They shot, 12 of 18 from 3, so they were hitting their shots. They were playing defense. Derek White got 4 blocks, a couple of steals for the other guys. It's just the type of performance you want to see when a good team plays a team like the Toronto Raptors. So the Celtics bounce back. They get just a great shooting night overall, 22 of 43 from 3, so that's something that they needed to do. And now they head out on the road. They needed a performance like this before heading out to play a tough back-to-back. Minnesota and Houston back-to-back on the road is not an easy one, so we'll see how the Celtics do, but great start after this one.
I don't care about the substance of this game, but my question is for this one.
Count it up.
You're the coach of a team that loses by 54 points. When do you pull the plug?
Oh man,
30, 25. It was like a 25-point game with like 3 or 4 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when the Boston Celtics scored 45 points in the third quarter, you scored 18. Going into that fourth quarter, it's done. Yeah, it's done at that point. Like you're not putting that genie back in the bottle at that point. You might as well sit your guys.
Raptors scored 12 points, 23 points, 18 points, and 18 points in each individual quarter.
That's crazy.
Brutal one for them. Last game of the night, the Clippers lose to the San Antonio Spurs by a lot. Another blowout in this one. It was a 41-point lead by the Spurs at one point in this game. The Clippers offense was brutal. They had an 87.8 offensive rating, which is just terrible. They shot 11 of 41 on threes. Victor Wembanyama was great again in this one. 17 points in the first quarter, 9 boards, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 3 blocks total in this game. He had a couple of really nice mid-range shots as well. When he starts hitting that, it's like start looking like a little like some Dirk-ish shots. When he starts hitting those, it's going to be game over for the rest of the NBA. And in the second quarter, Chris Paul had a steal and a breakaway, threw it off the backboard to Wemby, alley-oop, which is just like shoving it in the face of the Clippers in this one. My question for you, though, on this one.
Count it up.
How long did it take James Harden to get to his New Year's Eve party after the game? Game's done. Game's done. The final buzzer. How long did it take James Harden to get from arena to wherever he was going?
I know for a fact James Harden started pre-gaming on his way walking back to the locker room after the final buzzer. So I'd say probably 5 minutes. Probably 5 minutes.
5 total minutes from walking off the floor to he's already ready to bring in 2025.
Absolutely.
I agree. I saw Darian Vizier of Locked On Clippers say that James Harden had started his New Year's Eve party early, and I think he tweeted that like in the second quarter. That was during the game. That was during the game. We have a show for every single team in the NBA. Locked On Bulls with Haize, doing some great stuff over there all the time. Better stuff than the Bulls themselves. I would like to be on record and say that. Go check out Locked On Mavs for a team that doesn't have their star but has some interesting things going on for the next month or so. And go check out all the other NBA shows we have. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA Game Night. Boom.